Hey crafters, it's Sherry from Wild Polka Dots DIY Studio. This channel is all about getting creative, so let's make something amazing. Have you ever seen something and immediately had a clear vision of what it could be? That's exactly what happened to me. When I found this black metal pumpkin at a local return outlet, I knew it was a bit plain, but I saw so much potential in that blank space. The store only had 3 of them, and I bought all 3 on the spot, knowing I wanted to give one of them a custom hat and some extra details to make it really stand out. Now, I know chances are you won't have this exact pumpkin, but that's the beauty of this project. While you may not have this specific pumpkin, I encourage you to think about what unfinished pieces you may have laying around. If you're anything like me, your stash is full of wooden signs or a plain wreath or even those tin cans. The skills we're learning today are a fantastic way to transform any simple item into a beautiful, personalized creation. Okay, let's get started with our pumpkin hat. And first off, let's talk about our circles. For this project, I'm using MDF wall panels that I bought from a home improvement store. I found that these cut so much faster and cleaner on my laser than that expensive plywood that you can often find. And it just saves me so much time and frustration trying to cut out the strings and the glue. Now, I know you might be thinking, I don't have a laser cutter, and that's totally fine. I'm a big believer in using what you have. I'm showing you my laser cut circles, but if you don't have a laser, don't worry. There are a few alternatives that you could use. You could buy pre-cut circles from a craft store like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You could even trace a bowl or cup and cut them yourself. You could use your silhouette or your Cricut and cut them from 1/8 inch or 16th inch birch. Regardless, the end result is going to be just as beautiful. We're going to begin by stacking our circles largest to smallest so that they give the appearance of a hat once they're placed on top of our pumpkin. I used a wooden drawer pull to create the handle on top of our hat, and to make sure that everything was centered, I actually laser cut a hole in the middle of each circle. But don't worry if you don't have these holes. It's easy to do this by eye, just making sure that the edges of your smaller circles are even distance from the one below it. But you want to take your time here because it's worth it to get a beautiful symmetrical stack. Now, because of the paper backing on these panels, my go-to wood glue doesn't work. So I'm using Fabri-Tac. This stuff is amazing. It creates a really strong, quick setting bond, and it works on a lot of different materials. Originally, I had planned to leave the screw in my circle stack, but the screw was too long and it was going to extend further than the drawer pull. I knew that this wouldn't hold it all together tightly, so instead, I just used the screw to align the pieces, and then I pulled it out once they were all glued together. I started off by adding a smaller circle to the underside of my hat so that it wouldn't slide off. And to get the perfect stack, I glued the circles together, beginning with the largest on top of that smaller one. But the key here is alignment. I add just a little bit of Fabri-Tac around that circle, and remember, you don't need a lot, just a small amount is enough. I then pressed that largest circle down on top, and I held it firmly for about 10 seconds or so to make a really strong bond. Then we just repeat the process, adding a small amount of glue to each new circle and carefully aligning it to the next one on top. Once I have my circles placed, I kind of give them a little twist to distribute that glue, and that makes sure that it's going to adhere a little bit better. Once we've got everything stacked up and put together like we want it, we're going to take our drawer pull and we're going to glue it on the very top, again making sure it's perfectly aligned. Then just set this off to the side and let it dry for a few minutes. Now you can see that the glue has set. Seriously, this only took a few minutes. For painting our hat, I'm just using a simple acrylic black craft paint from Apple Barrel. But here's a pro tip for you. If, when you're painting, you apply thin coats and let each one dry completely before you apply the next, those thin coats will avoid drips and brush strokes, and they're what really help to ensure that perfect professional look. With our hat fully painted and completely dry, it's time to add a touch of gold and glamour. I liked the gold rim on the pumpkin and the gold touches within the black of the pumpkin itself, so I wanted to mimic this on my hat. I used a product called Rub and Buff, and this is one of my favorite products for adding a beautiful metallic finish. I just used my finger, and again, you don't want much. A tiny bit goes a long way. And placing it on my finger, I just rubbed it around the edges. I carefully rubbed it along the bottom edge of the hat or the largest circle. The goal here is to catch the light and create a subtle, elegant gold trim that ties in perfectly with the original pumpkin. Once I get the circle all painted, then I'm going to add a little bit to the drawer pull. This simple detail instantly makes our hat look cohesive and professionally finished. It actually kind of looks like it was just always meant to be a part of the pumpkin. Next, we get to the fun part, our embellishments. The first thing I did was to create a little wooden tag. I used my laser to cut this tag, which gives me a perfectly uniform shape. But if you don't have a laser, a small wood tag from any craft store will work perfectly. Another option would be to cut a tag from a piece of cardboard, like a cereal box. Cut two and glue them back to back so the brown shows on both sides. You could even add a little hole with a hole punch, or use your Cricut or Silhouette to cut one out. I wanted to give it a warm vintage look, so I brushed on some folk art antique wax, and it gives it that rich stained appearance. Once that was dry, I pulled out my simple alphabet stamps and a black ink pad to stamp the word boo right on the tag. And the trick with stamping is to make sure that your letters are fully covered with the ink, and that when you press down firmly onto the tag. This gives you a really clean impression. Then, for our final embellishment, I picked out a ribbon. I pulled a few options here. I grabbed some black and some bright green and some lime. And even a purple. Although I love the boldness of the lime green, when I held it up to the pumpkin, it just felt a little too bright and harsh. It's a great color, it just wasn't right for the elegant antique feel that I was going for. The purple really caught my eye, and I felt like it provided a beautiful soft contrast to the black and the gold trim. It felt a little more unexpected and playful, which is perfect for this fall project. It's a great reminder to trust your own creative instincts. Once you've got your ribbon, you just want to make a simple bow. This one was a very small bow. I took my time with it. And to attach it to our hat, I just went back to my trusty Fabri-Tac. I added a little dab to the back and pressed that ribbon down onto the wood. I held it gently in place until it kind of took hold, and then placed my tag behind that ribbon again with a little bit of Fabri-Tac. And with that, our pumpkin hat is complete. It has so much personality now. It's a great example of how just a few simple additions can take a basic piece and turn it into something truly charming and unique. I absolutely love how this all came together. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel.